So there are a lot of self-published authors out there right now that you can just research, you see what they did. I examined their social media. A lot of them have YouTube channels. And like I took bits and pieces of that and structured my own thing. So
do you feel continually let down by modern media? Do you miss the good old days, back when all that mattered was a good story and not some agenda? Do you have ambitions of picking up a pen and pad and fighting the creative war yourself? Then this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'm going to talk to a creator who said enough is enough and started making the content they wished was out there. Join us as we discuss the ups and downs of the self-publishing world. We want to help empower you to join the Iron Age of media. Welcome to Iron Age Marketing. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Iron Age Marketing. I am Nikki P. here today with Tiara Brown. How are you doing there?
pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right for a guy podcasting out of Ohio.
Yeah, actually, I also live in Ohio.
Well, which part are you? Which city?
I live closest to Akron, so like Akron area.
Oh, so you're local. Period.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well, you're here today so we can talk about books. You have put out your first book, and you did it yourself, which I commend you on. But how does that journey start? How do you decide to go and make a book for yourself? Is it something you've always dreamt about? Is it something you just decided because, everyone's putting out books today, I might as well put out my book?
Well, okay, so it's a long journey, so I don't know how in-depth you want to get with it. So I have always wanted to be a writer since I was a kid, and I guess I don't want to say gave up on it. I used to write a lot of stories when I was a kid, and then I went to college, and then I guess I somewhat forgot about it. I did other things.
Oh, I know that story very well.
Yeah, like you do.
You're not the first with that story. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, like you do other things, and like my mind was like elsewhere. And then after college, I was working, and I reread. So the book I just put out is actually an adult version of a book I tried to write when I was a teenager, except for like a lot longer and actually fleshed out. And then so I reread that, like the original thing I wrote when I was a teenager. And then I was like, oh man, like I got that fire in me again. I was like,
I was onto something here.
Right. Yeah. I was just like, I have to write this. So it started with that. And then originally I actually did try to traditionally publish, but that was a lot of just rejection after rejection. And it's like, that's just the name of the game. Like it's not a reflection of how good or bad you are. It's like a lot of traditional like publishers want to do what's popular. And it kept coming.
They're going to spend a lot of money. So they need to make sure whatever they're putting out is going to appeal to literally everybody.
Yes. And I agree with you. They're footing the bill. So it's completely understandable. And then, so, because I would get pretty close to like, and then it would fall through. So that kept happening. So that's when I was just like, okay, I could keep like querying to like agents and publishers, or I could just do it myself. And then I decided to do it myself.
I'll ask an uncomfortable question here, in that I'm curious that given your race, did that play into like what the expectations of the story that you're supposed to be telling are?
Yeah.
And then if you're not like exactly on point with the story that they want you telling, if you tweak it just this much, you could really tug those strings and get people into it.
Yeah, no, that did happen. That did happen. Unfortunately, I can't remember. I think it was the publisher. Like, so one of the because most publishers do want you to like get an agent first before submitting to them, but there are some that you can just like cold call submit to, and it's okay. And there's this whole thing with NaNoWriMo where it's like a little bit. There's like a contest online with that where you can kind of just like do it anyway. Like to like the like publishers that normally need names and are a little bit more open. So yeah, I think it was a publisher, but yeah, they reached out to me because like I participated like in some type of Twitter contest, and they um I didn't hide what the race that I am on my Twitter photo, and I submitted them like I think they either wanted a first chapter or the first three chapters because like different people want different things. And yeah, that was the feedback that I got back, is that they were disappointed that my book was not about race, and but I never advertised it to be about race. Like that was never anything. It was,
I'm just imagining if my wife sent something in, and I know what she would write because my wife's a huge Tolkien nerd, and she's going to write something very Tolkien inspired. And their first thing is like, but you're a proud black woman. Where is the proud black woman story of struggle and strife that's supposed to be? Like, I wanted to write about fairies and dwarves. I like dwarf songs a lot, and that's not what they're going to get.
yeah, I love fantasy, so I wrote about like people with magical powers, where like race is not something like there's like nationalism in my story where people have different powers don't like each other for that reason. But I didn't write a story about race, but I never said that I did.
How dare you not fall into our stereotype of what you're supposed to write?
Yeah, no, that's fair because like I mean, it's not fair.
I joke about it.
Yeah,
but it's a matter because like I just from a marketing standpoint, the first thing I'm gonna say is like because they are trying to deal with mass market, they're gonna try and jump on all the trends and whatever they can use to as an angle. And it isn't. Unfortunately, the first thing they're gonna come up with is like, hey, we got a pretty young black woman. What story can we use to sell this? What are we gonna put her on Oprah to get her on the book club? That's the angle that they're gonna take.
Yeah, I know. And then when I said that's fair, I was just joining in the sarcasm. No, I agree. Like I think it's incredibly annoying that they do that. I mean, like it's just I think it goes just diving into stereotypes. I can say that I grew up very fine. Like I just had the normal amount of struggle that someone would grow up middle class in suburbia.
So, like I said, to me, I look at it from the marketing perspective, and the thing is that especially when you jump into fantasy, it's already a niche, and then like there's a niche of a niche, and see they know that there's a smaller audience for that particular type of material, and the beauty of that, I think, for me, especially in the modern age, is that it's much easier for you to go and find your people than it is for them to try and dig down to who those people are, because it's going to be so expensive for them to do that. Where you can go out, you can start taking your personality out, meeting people. Like, do you do any cons or things like that?
So this is the first book that I've put out. I am doing an expo like later this year in like November. So this is so I'm getting my feet wet in all of that and stuff like that. So
I'm sorry, I completely derailed what I told you was even going to be the entire thrust of this first third by like taking up like we're getting into the marketing stuff already. Like when I asked you about your story and how you got to be a writer.
It's fine. It all intersects and stuff like that. But yeah.
So young adult, you took that. Is there a reason you went young adult as opposed to just kind of like general fiction?
So maybe it's just like me being young in spirit. I really like the young adult like genre. I think it's really fun to write in, just because like young adult's it can be a little bit ridiculous, but like I think that it's funny. Like it can be pretty dramatic, and then I think it's cute to like when they write, like when teenagers have like their first love, like there's something innocent and like cute about it. And yeah, I like writing in like that world.
I'm thinking back to like when I was reading Fear Street novels, which I got into way after Stephen King, just for the record. Eventually read through all the Stephen King, and then you got to go back to the young adult horror. And there was definitely something like I went through them when I was more of a teenager and had kind of there was certainly something to like the relationship element of it that is different in other like if you read like Tolkien, it's almost not there in like the way that is there. Like you have like weird ethereal relationships between Strider and whatnot. Or you get into more adult relationships and stuff. But there's like an innocence to the relationship, so they do have like where the people are learning how to do relationships.
Yeah, and it's like an innocence in it, and then that I like writing, and then in my book, partially it's young adult because main character is a teenager, but I also enjoyed writing for her is so she's like teenage girl. Teenage girls can be pretty dramatic. And then I liked writing the family dynamic because to her sometimes it seems like her parents seem pretty like not reasonable. When like writing it as an adult, you can also see it from her perspective because she's the protagonist and from her point of view.
This is how I would say this if you were my daughter, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and then but like writing it also as an adult, like, and then I hope that it comes across in the reading that like that the parents literally are doing the best that they can under these set of unique circumstances.
Was it cathartic at all when you're writing these kind of conversations, like just walking yourself through every conversation you've ever had with your mom and dad? If I had superpowers, it would have amped this up, but
well, a little bit because I think part of like growing up is realizing that your parents are human and like. Maybe sometimes they made mistakes because they are human and they're not perfect, but they literally, most of them literally are trying. They're doing the best that they can under whatever circumstances.
There's always that joke about you're an adult when you realize how little you knew. Like you realize your parents knew nothing. Like they're just as clueless. Like if any kid knew what their parents don't know, this whole thing would just be completely out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so it was kind of like having that family dynamic in the story and stuff like that too. I like doing that from like a young adult perspective and like just so you get her perspective, but then like reading it, like there are clues to be like, hey, like they are trying. These are unique, dangerous circumstances, and kid, you are not making this easy.
Let's just say we add puberty to anything complicated isn't gonna make it harder. So tell us a little bit about the setting in the world for your book.
Okay, so it's set in like it's not on Earth. It's like its own thing, but modeled after Earth, and it's set essentially in two countries. So, the main character, her name is Alexandria Stecklar, but Alex for short. She's 15, and she has telekinetic powers, and she lives underground, like physically underground, with her family, and they have other psychic powers too. Like, so her mom is also telekinetic, and her dad's telepathic, and she has an older sister by a year who's also telepathic. So they live in their own thing underground on the border of their country, Clavania, in I can't say words. Anyway, they live underground where their country, in the neighboring country, Parancia, and Parancia is where like magic folk are. So like magical sorcerers, and the two countries are basically in on again, off again war conflict, and her family lives underground because they're trying to be like, we're not involved. We have two kids. We're trying to like protect them. We're not in this. And then, so that's basically like the setting, and like the psychics live more like how we live, with like, technology and stuff. And then the other country, Francia, with the sorcerers. So magic is kind of like their technology. So I wouldn't say anyone is like technology lacking. It's just different. So instead of like,
what do you call technology?
I guess like magic, but with computers. I don't know.
Well, no, that's why a joke. It's like, so you went and you did the age-old trope. You put science versus magic, huh? You've seen that one before. And the reason it works, we do it, is because it works so well.
Yeah, and it's fun to do.
I'm reminded of that Phineas and Ferb episode where you've got them at the con, and half the guys are on the sci-fi convention and half of them are on the, the Tolkien convention, the fantasy, and they're doing their battle, and it's all fun.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's like a religious component that comes in at all, like with the magic versus the science side of it, or if there's a, if you have a different way of kind of explaining that. How does magic work in this world? Is it just kind of like a thing, or is it related to some type of societal structure? How do you explain, like, if you have a technological side and a non-technological side? How does, say, like, to me, if you're a telekinetic or whatnot, you would seem magical in a technological world. Is that part of it? Part of the narrative? Like, I'm curious because it's just an interesting way to do that.
So how I structured it is like that it's all genetic, right? So it's like these different powers that were like passed down, like just genetically. And then I also like framed it as like being able to like bend certain type of like energy and just having different abilities to do that. So um, the magic is just like the type of energy and genetic flow that the sorcerers have. And then like the psychics, that's just, I guess, what they genetically or evolved into having was like that type of ability.
Are they, as you say, they're kind of like the same thing but explained differently on either side of the line? Is that kind of the idea, or are they actually different things?
I would. They have their similarities, but they're different because they can do different things from each other.
Well, no, that's interesting because it's a way to go. Because you'd think in a world where people see one type of magic versus what seems to be the same thing, because that's always the magic versus science debate is all on how you describe what's going on and how you justify it. Did he move it with his mind? Well, no, but there's these things in the air that his mind just happens to be able to, there could be the scientific explanation or the magical explanation for it. So that's always, it's like I say, it's a dichotomy that we all understand innately. And I think this, in a young adult novel, it's got to be extra poignant because part of growing up is realizing the difference between magical thought and the reality behind what magic is, I guess. So you put out this young adult fantasy novel, and what is the journey of actually making the book to getting it in front of people look like for you?
From like starting to write it or when the manuscript was done. So
I'm going to be honest, I'm more concerned you've got a book and I want people to read it now. Because that's the harder part. I'm going to be honest, there's lots of places anyone can go to write a book right now. One of my favorites is Boost with a Book. One of my friends runs it. But that'll help you make the book. Now what do we do with the book once we got it?
No, that's fair. So I definitely was one of those people that was after I wrote it, I was like, oh, what do I do now? Okay. And then so what I did do is I guess just a lot of research. So there are a lot of self-published authors out there right now that you can just research, you see what they did. I examined their social media. A lot of them have YouTube channels, and like I took bits and pieces of that and structured my own thing. So after I wrote it, after it was edited, so I got the editors, book formatting, cover art, all the things. I started. I announced that. Well, I announced that I think it was being edited, but I announced the release date. I blasted it on all of my social media. I started I started doing posts, releasing the cover art. I did a cover reveal, cover art, just being this is what the book is about. The whole pre-order thing, releasing that, pictures of that, did a whole countdown. just trying to develop hype on the social media side. And then in the real world side, I made sure to try and tell everyone I knew, which for me, it was actually pretty awkward. But I've heard other writers say that,
hey, did you know I'm a writer?
Yeah.
We're working on a novel.
Just slip that in there.
I know I've been supposed to be doing this job for the past couple of years, but really I've been writing a novel on lunch break, maybe while I'm supposed to actually be working.
But yeah, so it's like finding ways to like slip that in there, which actually I have found word of mouth has been really great because when you tell people that you're a writer and then you're like, no, I have a book actually coming out, a lot of times people are really excited for you, which is great because then they would tell their friends. And I was just like, yes, yeah, do that. Do that. A couple of friends asked me, and they're like, oh, is it okay if I tell so and so? I was like, please do not ask me. Just do it. It's fine. It's fine. Feel free to tell as many people that you want. So I started doing that. When the book actually came out, I told my local library. I told a local high school near me because I know a teacher there. I was actually able to speak to some of her students about like just writing in general, and that was really cool. And so that's what I did as far as like the marketing. And obviously, I'm continuing to market and post things and do events and stuff like that. But that's how I got help get the word out for people to like buy a book, and then obviously asking people for reviews. I do wish I didn't know this. Like I do wish I would have done this. I'm doing this for book 2 because I didn't think of it. But I saw this online that some authors actually in like the last page of the book or like in the about the author part of the book, they literally will say, here's the link where you can like leave a review if you like this book. If you like it's physically in the book. And I was like, I wish I would have thought of that. I was like, that would have been great. But I will do that next time.
Now, obviously you've talked about putting out a second book.
Yeah.
So, and I asked this question because it's the most important question, and some people get it, some people don't. I'm surprised how many people don't. So what does your email list look like for when you're sending out for the second book?
Oh, well, I'm still writing the second book. So are you saying what I hope it looks like, or what does it look like
Well,
now?
no. So my point is you've been collecting emails and ways to communicate with people this whole time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Some people have not gone that far. And I'm like, man, you're going to start from scratch on book 2. Like, you don't have an audience to connect with. Like, you could have had all those people that purchased book 1 that you get to message now and say, hey, book 2's out. And then you start with all those purchases before you ever even move on to the rest of them. So I'm curious, how much of, like, do you communicate with like the people on your list often? You sending out ways for them to communicate with you, ways to kind of keep in their consciousness so they don't forget about you before the next book comes out?
Yeah. So I think I most recently sent out like a thing, just finding things to send people without being annoying. But like because I don't do it like some people do it every week. I don't do it every week, but the most recent thing I sent out was just like a thank you post newsletter, just being like, hey, thank you for the support. And then of course you always slide in like, if you enjoy the book, feel free to leave a review here, like a link for that. So for me, like the newsletters I sent out, obviously I did that for like the countdown before it came out, the cover reveal.
Do you ever do like contests and things like that?
I did not. I wish I would have done that, but
well, in my head, I'm just thinking this is an excuse to send an email. Hey, free copy of book 2 when it comes out to whoever does the best YouTube video reviewing my book.
That's actually really good. I might steal that. That's actually a really good.
By all means, take at it. I got no shortage of these things here. To me, it's so much about, because if nothing else, like there's good data that you get off of like what people will say about it, what they're thinking about it, what they're feeling about your book, and for every person who goes and does that, you get like just this really, really deep understanding of what it is about your books that works with your audience. So from like, I'm not sure how you write your books, if you go out there, very thoughtful about what the story is going to be, or if you're one of those people that just, no, I'm going to start writing, just go where I go. But data never hurts, if nothing else, for the marketing side of things.
Yeah, no, you're right. It doesn't hurt.
Out of curiosity, what do you have a specific kind of demographic? Obviously, young adult kind of narrows you down a bit already, but is there like a particular set of people or type of young adult that you see reading your book or connecting with it?
So the demographic that I've seen read it has been probably ages like maybe 15, 16 to like early 20s. And then I've then some outliers with like people that like older that I know and stuff like that. But I would say that, and like obviously if you like the fantastical element, if you like the first love element, there's also because I love action adventure things. So like the first love is very much like a subplot. It's not like it's not it's relevant
It's not
to
a
the plot,
romance
but
book. It
yeah,
is
it's not
fantasy.
yeah. But I would say like teens and then like people in their early 20s, just because of like there's a fantastical element. There's like there's fighting and stuff like that. People using their powers.
Do you
Yeah.
see a skew more male or female in the people that are interested in it and connect with it yet?
I think I've seen a skew more female.
And do you assume she's a woman, she's clearly going to understand better how a woman feels. So I want to read that. Do you think that's part of it, or do you think it's just I don't know? Do you have any speculation as to like why that would work that way?
Well, I think that a lot of I think girls tend to just read more young adult, like, or give young adult like a chance just in general, like because most like young adult books that people like oh I love young adult. Most of the time, I'm not saying there aren't some guys that don't enjoy it, obviously, because I try to write a book that I think that men and women obviously will enjoy, but I do think genre-wise that genre tends to skew towards more female, like just in general.
I don't have the research in front of me, but the documents I think would suggest that. I can say that as a when I was younger, I probably would have had the idea of like, it's just kid stuff. I need something harder. Give me something a little bit more. I don't know, more dead bodies. That's what I need. More dead bodies.
Yeah.
Somebody with sword killing somebody. That's all I want.
Well, I mean, people get stabbed in my book too, if that helps. Like there's,
I'm immediately more interested. I will say that. So
yeah, there's stabbings, like because there's fighting. Yeah.
So you have a second book that you're working on.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is it like are you working on a series or just a second book, something completely disconnected? Are you building a universe? Like what are you doing?
So this the book I have now is the first book in a trilogy. So this would be the sequel. So the second book, so the second book I'm working on is a sequel. So Alex's story is not over yet in book one. There's more. There's more that happens.
Do you feel that hinders your ability to sell the books? Do people go into it knowing there's going to be more books? Or did you write it as a standalone and have decided to add on to it?
So I definitely wrote it as a series because the way book one ends, it does end like on a cliffhanger, but I have been pretty honest that this is a series, so I haven't like marking wise like tried to mislead anyone, be like, no guys, this is part one, so it does leave off on a cliffhanger. I mean, some answers, just the way storytelling works, obviously you do have to answer some questions and like have some type of resolve.
The reason I ask is because I find with a lot of authors, and they do the series thing, they go into it knowing that the books aren't going to sell that good because basically George R. Martin screwed everybody over with Game of Thrones by not finishing the books.
Oh yeah.
And so no one wants to start a series and imagine that it's not going to get finished anymore.
I guess I would say to like anyone, like guys, but most authors aren't George R. Martin like that. That was.
Gary from Nerdrotic is counting down the days that he's overdue for the book. It's been like 7 years since he should have written the last one.
I watch his YouTube channel. Yeah, no, he is hilarious with that. Like, but I mean, I'm one of the people that have said like, because I loved Game of Thrones, the show, but I'm one of the people that was like, guys, I don't think Martin's finishing it. Like, at this rate, like, I don't think it's going
Gary always picks on him about how he's just constant. He's like, if you stopped tweeting about football long enough, maybe you could get a few pages in.
I mean, I would tell Gary from Nerdrotic, like, dude, I don't think it's going to happen. Like, he he wrote a whole prequel instead of finishing the series because of House of the Dragon.
Exactly.
He wrote, instead of finishing the series, he wrote like a whole prequel. I was like, no, I guess not to get too off topic, but season 8 of Game of Thrones, I think, this is just my personal theory, I think those are the notes of what Martin wanted to happen. I don't think it was executed well. But, you know, I'm assuming that is something similar is what's going to happen in the books. I mean, not exactly, because obviously certain like threads and there are more characters in the books. Like, I don't think it'll be exactly like that. But
I just know it would have been better than the show ended.
yeah, I think it would have been fleshed out more. I think it would have made more sense. I think they were just like, okay, these are his cliff notes, but we'll find a way to make this happen. And then they were just like, let's rush through this. Because they admitted that in interviews, being like, oh, we wanted this to be wrapped up so we
We're
could do
more
other
interested,
things.
more interested in the Star Wars deal that we just signed before the end of it.
Yeah. So,
well, just to be clear, we got to talk about your book in the same breath as we were talking about George R.R. Martin. So that's only good for you. You know, you can now say, "Oh, my book has been discussed alongside George R.R. Martin."
That's true.
And so don't think that he's off topic, because the topic is fantasy novels, and you're in that pantheon now.
Thanks.
Where can people go to check you out and learn more about your book, buy your book?
Yes, so I have a website, which is actually my whole name. So it's www.tiarajbrown.com. So TIARAJBROWN.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Tiara Joy Brown, because that's what the J stands for. All one word for both. And then my book is available pretty much everywhere books are available online. So Amazon, Barnes Noble, like Target website. You can request it at your local library because it's in the library network as well. And then Google Play. So it's available in hardcover copy, paperback, and ebook. This is, and the cover looks the same on all, but yeah, this is what it looks like, you know, for everyone who's interested. And yeah.
Is the locket important? Should I ask that?
The locket is important. Yes. The locket is important. It's pretty. I can't say why it's important because it's important. It'd be kind of it'd give away like a huge spoiler of why it's important. But it is. You see, the locket shows up and gets mentioned throughout, and then you find out later at the end of this book actually why it's important too. So it's just like yes, it is. It is important.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Hopefully we get some people there, and hopefully people can learn from, you know, the lessons of what you've learned from your process and going through it. That's the most important thing, is showing other authors it can be done, and there's better and worse ways to do it. Do the best way.
Oh yeah. And then, I mean, for me, I'll just say one last thing that's like helped me the most is I would say like word of mouth marketing wise still has helped me sell more books. Like just word of mouth and like speaking to people face to face. Social media has helped a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I would ask, what's your favorite social media that you've found, and what have you gotten the most traction out of? Because in general, I'm very displeased with most of what social media has to offer me these days. So,
I would say Instagram, like, and probably just because I like Instagram the most, is because like you can post pictures, you can have like short little videos, reels, and stuff like that. I think for me, that's been like the most prosperous, like across them and stuff like that. So,
I'm curious because I've been seeing more of these lately. Did you really have like a book trailer that you did to put out there, or is that something that's part of your marketing?
So I didn't do a book trailer. I got a lot of mixed messaging about book trailers when I first, like, before my book even came out. Because, like, some people like them. Some people said, like, oh, this is, like, there's, like, no traction. There's, like, no money. I wasn't sure. Like, so I didn't do one.
I think there's a way to do them that would work, and nobody does them the way that would work. It's the thing. That's why I've asked about it, because I'm curious. Like, do these work for anybody? It's like, you're just showing me things that aren't the story. You're not telling me this story. Like, I would use social proof, like, and try and get like testimonials and things like that for the book, or get like, get early copies out, get reader testimonial, and maybe have people record, their thoughts on it in a quick video. Like, I feel like that's a better trailer for a story than,
I think so too.
Just weird static images and imagine a world. I'm imagining a world.
Yeah, I didn't do a book trailer, so I have no personal data on that. I just kept getting so many mixed messages, and some people were like, "Oh yeah, you should do it," but then there were a lot of people like, "No, this is a waste of time. It got me like nothing," and I was just like, "Well, I guess it's not required." So,
well, and if you found a better way to make short form content for your people, that's probably like, ultimately, I'm imagining putting you on a camera, on a cell phone, talking to people is probably going to do more than a book trailer does. Just taking a guess.
Yeah, probably. But it does seem like that for a lot of people that like say like booktube or like author YouTube. I'm pretty sure that's why a lot of that works for them, because they literally are they're on camera talking about their books or other books too. So yeah.
We had a previous guest, Storm Young, who did a bunch of mystery novels based out of West Virginia, and she said like she just tell like these small little mystery things, like questions, who's so and so, oh, it's a character in this book that I wrote, and she's a mom who goes to college and has a kid at home, and so she's like doing her her reels and things like that while the baby's there, and she's taking care of the kid, doing laundry and the dishes, and she'd just have like these ideas and kind of talk to herself about them, and then just ask questions, any little thing that she could to have something to put up. And that she said that she got nothing but good traction via TikTok and Facebook Reels. So I think it all boils down to how you connect with your people.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what you like to do too, because if you hate doing that like marketing tactic, you're probably not going to be good at it. / you won't be consistent with it either.
I know my marketing tactic is just be an angry white guy. I can do that. That's going to be the people that read the stuff anyways. It's going to be the subtext of everything. That's what people expect. Don't bother screwing with expectations. Just give them what they want. Angry white guy. Well, thank you once again for coming on here, Tiara.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully you got everything you wanted out of the show, too.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you letting me come on. Also, I don't think you're an angry white guy. You seem very nice.
Oh, I am very angry. I'm keeping it all in. But
okay.
Do you fancy yourself the next Tolkien, Lewis, or Barker? Maybe you just have something subversive to say. Hopefully this podcast is helping you. But maybe your ambitions are just a little bigger than you can handle on your own. Head over to ironeadsmarketing.com and let Nikki P help ensure your book doesn't release to nobody.